I started thinking as I was standing right over there and I was watching that, and it got me thinking, how did I get to church? How did my life change so much that I went from just meandering through life to having the ability to stand up here and tell you just how much I love God? And really briefly, before we get into that, it starts when I was in 7th grade. I remember very distinctly, we were in 7th grade, and church was not for me at all. I did not grow up going to church. We maybe went 5 times my entire life before that point. But somebody came into my parents' life, specifically my mom's boss, invited her to come to church. And it happened when we were in 7th grade, and my mom thought, okay, yeah, let's go try this out. And we go to this church, and started going every single Sunday, and every single Sunday I was sitting in the pews, and I was falling asleep, kind of sleeping through, because church wasn't for me, as I already said. And then all of a sudden this guy named Pastor Jay comes up, and he was like this early 20-year-old, like trying to be way too cool, and nothing like our student pastor here, who's Pastor Richie, who really is cool. This guy was trying way too hard, but he came up and he's like, hey man, I want to invite you to youth group on Wednesday night. And my mom looks at me and my dad looks at me, and they were like, yeah, you should go. And I thought, church just isn't for me. Now I got to give another day of the week up to this church thing. That's cool, but whatever. So they would drive me to church, and I grew up in Pennsylvania where we didn't have churches everywhere like here, where you guys really do get the benefit of there's a lot of people talking about God. In Pennsylvania, we had to drive 45 minutes to get to church, which was terrible, because then I would have to wake up early on a Sunday morning, drive 45 minutes. Thankfully, I got to take about an hour nap in service on the pew before we went back home. But then I was having to do it on Wednesday nights as well. And I would come in, talk to nobody, sit in the chair, and there were all these like crazy people. Like there would be like a live band playing, and there would be people singing the songs and raising their hands, and I didn't know what that meant at all. Why are we raising our hands? That's weird. And then there were some people, and they would like start crying, and I thought, this is really not for me, guys, like at all, this church thing. But whatever, my mom, my dad, they want me to do this. And parents, let this be a testament. Bring your kids to church. Bring your kids to church, because eventually it sinks in. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting there, and then Pastor Jay, who's just energy beyond life, comes running up to me one Wednesday night, and he's like, man, I want to personally invite you. We're going out of town. We're going out to Baltimore, and we're going to go to this crazy concert. It's going to be insane. And I thought, no. If I'm just being honest, but I didn't like confrontation, so I was going to pin it off on my parents, because if I knew one thing about my family's a lot of things growing up. My dad was the picture of a hard worker. He worked in a rock quarry. He made asphalt, manual labor. You want to know hard work, you go talk to my dad. You want to know love, you go talk to my mom and my dad, who are still married to this day. I don't know, like 100 years, 45 years, they're still married. But rich, we were not. Okay, so I thought, oh yeah, Jay, I'll go talk to my mom. I know we don't have money to pay for transportation, hotels, the conference. And I go and I talk to my parents, and long story short, they said yes. Which, okay, cool. Now I got to give up like a whole weekend to this God thing. And I go, and we go to this giant conference. We're talking tens of thousands of crazy people, just like I saw Sunday morning and Wednesday night. People who are crying and raising their hands. And I'm like, this is insane. Why do people do this? I don't get it. And then I remember the speaker for that night. He comes up on stage and he starts telling this story, and we're sitting in like the upper decks of this giant arena, and I'm like, man, I can't even hear this guy. It's so loud. There's so much energy in here. And then he starts talking about this story that I never heard, and I know most of you guys, I see you all the time. You're going to be like, how'd you not hear the story? I did not go to church up until this point in my life. But he starts talking about this guy named Peter. And he starts talking about Peter standing in this boat. And the speaker on the stage, he's actually standing in a canoe on the stage. And he's like, Peter, he's standing in this canoe. And if he never took a step out of the canoe, he would miss everything. And I'm like, what's everything? And now people start disappearing, at least in my mind. And then it starts becoming just me and the speaker that's up on the stage. And I start listening to him. And he's like, Peter steps out of the boat in the middle of the water and he doesn't sink. And I'm like, what? What do you mean he doesn't sink? Is he really in the middle of the water? And the guy's like, yes, he's really in the middle of the water. And I'm like, wow, how did he do that? How did he know exactly what I was thinking? And then the guy gets back in the boat. And he said, but here in the boat, it's safe. It's comfortable. It floats. He goes, but if Peter doesn't step out of the boat and he doesn't look to Jesus and he doesn't start going to Jesus, he misses everything. He misses on the miracle of being a man who stands on water. And then he gets back in the boat and he starts getting in the boat and out of the boat. And I start feeling this weird feeling inside my chest. And I start feeling this little tugging on my heart. Felt like a knocking. And I look back up at the stage and the guy's like, you're gonna miss it if you're standing in the boat. See, we don't remember Peter because he was standing in the boat. We remember Peter because when Jesus came walking, he stepped out of the boat and he started running to Jesus. And in that moment, I felt a calling like I had never felt in my life. And it said, Stephen, get out of your boat. And I'm starting to get goosebumps just thinking about it. I really am. It feels weird wearing this jacket as I'm getting goosebumps. But in that moment, I heard, Stephen, get out of the boat. I'm right here. I've been here. And I try to keep standing in the boat. And I look back up at the guy, and it seems like he's staring right at me. And he said, you can't be a part of the miracle until you step out of the boat. And in that moment, I remember raising my hands. I remember feeling like I was the only one there and God was talking directly to me. I remember that night I gave my heart to Jesus. I gave my soul to Jesus. I gave my future to Jesus. And the beautiful part was, I felt like surrender was supposed to make you weaker. But in that moment when I yielded to Jesus, I became stronger. It was in that moment that I was no longer standing on my own, standing in the boat by myself, but I was standing out on the water on the hands of Jesus. It was in that moment that I realized that Jesus was inviting me to yield to him. So if you're following along, I think in your bulletin, that's the first point. I think sometimes the key to getting stronger is through surrendering. But in order to surrender, you have to yield. God calls us to lay down our own lives. We see exactly that with Paul in Romans 12:1. It says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. You see, I didn't surrender that night to earn God's love. No, I yielded to God, and for the very first time, I realized that I surrendered because I already had God's love. But I wasn't listening for God. I wasn't listening to try to hear his love. You know, surrender is motivated by mercy. Paul roots the call to surrender in God's mercy. We don't yield it to earn God's love. God doesn't demand surrender so that way he can give us love. No, we yield to God because we already have his love. And the more we grasp his grace, the more natural surrender starts becoming. And then surrender starts becoming an act that we get to use in worship of God. You know, worship isn't just all about singing great songs and raising our hands, although that's great. And I realize that now, not when I was in 7th grade. But I realized just how beautiful worship is. But worship is more than just singing. It's offering our lives, our whole lives. See, true strength is not holding on, but laying ourselves at the altar daily. It's not just coming here and singing songs. It's not just putting K-Love on the way to work. It's every single morning getting up, the alarm clock goes off, and you stand up and you step out of the boat. Every single morning, the very first thing you need to do is worship God. So that way we could get the true power of him and his angel armies. It's getting up every day and acting like that bed is your boat and stepping out. But the problem is, there's a tension. It's one thing to take a moment and just listen to God. It's one thing to just yield to God, which is important because if you're not listening, who are you really hearing? But then there's this tension. There's this tension of trust. You know, faith requires that we believe God's will is better than our own. Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. You know, I asked Pastor Josh to put this chair up on the stage this morning. And does anybody build chairs? No one. That would have been really cool. I was expecting no one to say yes. But little known fact about me, I don't build chairs either, okay? I've never built a chair in my life, but I know what a chair is used for, right? I could tell you right now, most of you guys, when you came in here, you didn't think twice before you sat down, did you? You didn't walk in and think, wow, I wonder if that chair is going to hold me. I wonder who put this chair here? Do you guys know who put those chairs there? I didn't. No. I did not. Anybody? Does anybody care who put those chairs there? Not really. All you cared that there was a spot for you when you got here. And there will always be a spot for you. There's my plug for Journey Church as well. Please come Sunday after Sunday. We have a place for you. But here's the thing. I could talk about this chair. I could talk about it all day. I can tell you how great this chair is. This chair is going to hold me without a shadow of a doubt. This chair was actually designed for me to sit in. It's pretty comfortable for anybody who's been baptized. It's the chairs that you get to sit in right before you go up on stage. This chair was made to look good, to feel good, and to hold my body weight. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and sit down. That was silly, right? Do you think that chair is really going to hold me? I believe it too. I believe it too because that's what it was made to do. It was literally made to just hold you. And that's exactly why this chair is on this stage. And you know what? It doesn't matter what this chair was made for if I try to keep doing it by myself. If I try to keep leaning on my own understanding, instead of yielding to God, instead of trusting God, I never get to use this chair, what it was really made for. If I just try to keep doing squats, if anyone's ever done squats, it's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to rest. I'm trying to be secure. I'm trying to find comfort. And instead, my legs are burning. It is doing the exact opposite, and it isn't until I finally sit down that I get to feel. This is actually pretty nice. You see, this chair was made for me. It was made to do exactly what I'm doing right now. And if I try to lean on my own understanding, If I try to do squats, or if I try to sit at the edge, or maybe, I'm a kids pastor, if I try to just sit on the arm of this chair the way it was not designed to be used, it's going to be way more energy. And instead, I just get to sit here. I get to relax. I get to recover. I get to feel comfort because this really is a nice chair, whoever bought this. You see, the thing about trust is it's got to be more than lip service. I can't just talk about how good this chair is. I can't just talk about how much I trust that this chair is going to hold me. Trust requires a release of my control. We often lean on our own understanding, but that's just shaky ground. That's just shaky ground because all I was doing was trying to use this the way that I wanted to use it, not the way that it was designed to do. And God's perspective is higher and wiser than I could ever. The person who built this designed it in such a way that it was going to maximize my recovery time. It was going to maximize my healing. Trust is proven in obedience. Submission in all your ways means we stop compartmentalizing. If you're trusting God, you need to give God access. I can't say, God, I welcome you into my house. Just don't go into that bedroom. I can't say, God, I welcome you. You're amazing. Come into my house. Please just don't open that closet. There's a lot of skeletons in that closet, and I'm ashamed of those, God. No, submission in all of your ways means we yield and we trust God. It says, God, please come into my house. God, open that closet. I know there's skeletons in there, and I need help cleaning them out. God, I trust that you're here for my good, that you're here for my recovery, that you're here for my healing, that you're here for my future. God, I want you in every room of this house. I want you in the bedroom so you can guide my marriage. I want you in my daughter's room so you can help me raise her in the way she needs to go. I need you in that back closet where I'm hiding things, God, so you could show me the future and how I can get past that. As we yield to God, God brings clarity. God brings direction. And God will give us the strength that we need to endure whatever this life is going to throw at us. And that's what I love about obedience. When we trust and we obey God, there's a transformation that happens. Because as we surrender to God, God begins to mold us into his very image. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Obedience changes you. Obedience changes your mindset. The world says that strength equals control, but God says strength equals him. Strength equals surrender. And as our minds are renewed, we surrender, not as a loss, but as a gain. Because obedience aligns us with the very will of God, the very plan that God has for your life. God's will is described as good, pleasing, and perfect. Transformation means we don't just know God's will, but we delight in God's will. We participate in God's will. We get good, pleasing, and perfect will for your life. And I think there's something that says that God's will, his future, is beyond what I could have ever dreamed. When I was in 7th grade at the Inner Harbor in Baltimore, sitting with tens of thousands of people, I never would have thought I would have had the chance to go up and do that very thing, to be part of changing somebody's life. And all of that started with my mom getting invited to church.